Hi, Joy Horner here. I was going to say Joyful here. That's my other name, Joyful Morning Song. But yeah, Joy Horner here, talking a bit about the sad news this week. We heard about independent midwives, and the reason that I'm doing this is that not everyone actually understands what happened this week. And what this means for women and what it means for independent midwives. So I hope to clarify it a bit, but with my basic understanding, because I became ill at the end of last year and I'm no longer a member of IM UK. So I'm not talking as a member of IM UK, I'm talking as a former member and someone that's worked for other companies as well. So this is my take on the situation. And I've been an independent midwife for 12 years now. And at the start of my career in 2005, start of my independent career, I was a midwife before that, we didn't have insurance. We didn't have professional indemnity insurance. And I hope to go on and explain what that means in a minute. So a bit of historical reference, and I can't remember dates. I've got ME and various other things, so honestly my brain is like Swiss cheese. So was it 1995 that the Royal College of Midwives stopped insuring their members? Their independent midwifery members. It was something like that, which was sort of 10 years before I became an independent midwife. So independent midwives had worked without insurance for a long time. And why the Royal College of Midwives stopped insuring us was that they actually had a vote. So insurance premiums went up. This is a really important thing to remember. Insurance premiums always go up. Okay, that's a really important thing to remember. So insurance premiums went up and the Royal College of Midwives had a vote of their membership could vote and say whether they wanted to pay a bit more for their membership each year, and the Royal College of Midwives would keep insuring independent midwives or not. And unfortunately, a lot of people decided they didn't want to pay an extra £5 a year, because independent midwives obviously aren't that important, and the women we serve obviously aren't that important, and they can cope very well in the NHS with all these high needs cases and people that need one-to-one specialised care from experts. The NHS is very good at that. So no, they didn't need independent midwives. So they didn't want to pay an extra £5 on their subscription, which contributed to the situation we're in now. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think insurance is a good idea, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Someone posted, was it Ames? I think it was Ames, posted insurance doesn't equal safety, and it certainly doesn't. And I've looked after many, many women over the years. I don't know how many, because to me they're not numbers, but I've looked after hundreds of women, and amongst them I've had a consultant oncologist, I've had a medical negligence lawyer, I've had a family barrister, and all sorts of other people who think it's a jolly good idea to employ an independent midwife without insurance. So I had no insurance when that consultant booked with me. I had no insurance when the medical negligence lawyer booked with me, and none when the barrister booked with me. And do you know what? They understood that insurance does not equal safety, and I'll tell you why. So when someone inquired with me, I had an agreement that if they decided they were going to book with me, family signed, and in that agreement and verbally I would explain what professional indemnity insurance meant and what it would mean for them as a family if I didn't have it. So what it would mean for them as a family if I was negligent and they proved negligence, which is a hard thing to do, whether you're trying to take an independent midwife or an NHS midwife or doctor to court, it's hard to prove negligence, but if you manage to do it and I'm negligent and I've got insurance, the family get a payout to care for their damaged child. Now, don't get me wrong here, I don't think that's a bad idea at all, but I think our government should pay for it, and I don't think that families ought to be put through the mill of going through the court system when they've already got a damaged or dead baby to actually prove that someone's been negligent to get money to support that child. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. Um, there are children that are born brain damaged where there hasn't been negligence. There are children born with medical conditions that need lifelong care. You know, why do we have to go through this punitive system, you know, that is the judicial system? You know, we have a system in place where we can already punish midwives and doctors. You know, the doctors have the GMC and we have the NMC. And if a midwife or a doctor has done something wrong in their practice, you report them to the NMC or the GMC, and they're dealt with accordingly. And it's a harsh process to go through. I've seen my colleagues go through it. I've had investigations, but not by the NMC. I've been lucky. But yeah, so going off at a bit of a tangent here because I get a bit excited about this sort of stuff I'm talking about, but it's really, really important to know what we're talking about. So without insurance, I'd always tell my clients that if I damage their baby and if they manage to prove negligence, which is more likely than on the NHS because my notes are open and transparent, my notes are shared with the client, I give them a copy of the notes, you know, there's no way that I can falsify notes because they have the notes, they see the notes each time. I can't pretend that I've lost them in the system because there isn't a system, there's only me. So it's very easy for people to attempt to sue independent midwives, but because we're giving one-to-one care and we can't pass the buck, we're very, very careful about how we work, and we're not going to cut corners and we're not going to rush things, and we're going to check and double check that we've done things right, and we're going to do all our research, so we can support the family and stay safe. Now, if I haven't got insurance and you try and sue me and you manage to prove negligence in a court or in front of the NMC, there will be no payout to look after that baby. And that is totally wrong. In New Zealand, they have something called the No Fault Compensation Scheme. So if any baby is damaged in any way, whether there was negligence or not, the government will pay out for that baby to be cared for. And that's what we need in the UK. That's what we need. We don't need individuals to have insurance. We need our government to actually care for the most vulnerable of society, because we've already got a punitive form of dealing with people who are negligent. So if you report a doctor or a midwife or a nurse to the NMC or GMC, they sit in front of a panel and they look at all the evidence, and they've taken statements from parents and God knows who else, and then they decide if that practitioner needs more training, or if they're fine, there wasn't negligence, you know, they can just carry on, or if they need to do supervised practice work with someone watching them, or if they're just damn dangerous and they need to be struck off the register. So that's the system we've already got in place. We don't need more than that, honestly. And it's cruel to see bereaved families and families of damaged children go through this unjust system where they've got very little chance of making a claim. You know, I know people, I have supported people who try and make a claim against health professionals, and it is very, very hard and very draining, and they spend a lot of money doing it. So let's get back on track. Goodness, it's nearly 10 minutes already. So what the recent ruling is about. Basically, independent midwives managed to get insurance in 2013, I think it was, might have been 2014, and we've been working happily with this insurance ever since. But the NMC, in their wisdom, decided our insurance was inadequate without actually defining what adequate was, and because of that, it ended in they stopped independent midwives working in January of this year. And it then went to court, to decide if the NMC had worked, I don't know, within their remit or within the law. And it appears that they did, although it doesn't mean it was the right decision. and how this impacts women and how it impacts midwives. So lots of my colleagues can no longer work. So don't believe the hype, don't believe the, oh, but lots of independent midwives are still working. You know, we can all work this way still. In my area, I cannot get a contract with the NHS, so I cannot get NHS insurance. And being a midwife that's only ever really worked part-time, because I do prioritise my family, I'm afraid. I love midwifery, but my family are a huge priority, that yeah, it's prohibitively expensive. And I don't know what it is. As I said, I'm not a member of IM UK, but when I was, I paid about £500 per woman I looked after for insurance. And it looks as if the costs are double that this year. As I said, I don't know the cost, but you know, people are telling me it's very, very expensive. Now, I don't have many women due in a year. You know, one a month was my busiest. So I cannot earn enough to justify paying that much out. And also, and more importantly, the women that I care for cannot afford a hike in fees. When I stopped working, my fees were £4,000 a year. In this new scheme, I'd have to put them up to £5,000. Now, some people can afford that. Some people can make long-term payments. That's fabulous. You know, I've done lots of that in the past. But I also did a lot of pro bono work. So my clients who didn't have income, who didn't have money, who did have large debts maybe, who couldn't imagine paying this even in the long term and didn't want to be further in debt, you know, I had the luxury of being able to support those clients, and they always paid me back in some way. I've been paid back in soup, in firewood, in the building of this beautiful studio that I'm in. Ooh. So this is my husband's office and my pottery studio. But yeah, that was because I looked after a family, and they didn't have a lot of cash, but they had skills. So if I did that now, if I took someone on who had no money out the kindness of my heart, I would have to ask them for £1,000 just so that I can look after them for free. How are they going to do that? It doesn't work out. I can't pay the £1,000. Who's going to pay that £1,000? Doesn't make sense. So midwives with really large practices or who work in affluent areas, this won't be a problem, you know, because they can hike up the fees. You know, women will pay the fees. Sorry, I'm trying not to get the sun in my eyes. There we are. Women will be able to pay the fees. In my area, people haven't got that money, and that's the bottom line. So it is prohibitive to midwives working in this way and for women accessing care. And what this means for NHS midwives, because you know, you think this doesn't affect you, it so affects you. So my clients who wanted their breech birth at home, my clients who were Jehovah's Witness who wanted a home birth, you know, and you found them very difficult clients, my clients with mental health problems, my clients that have had sexual abuse in their past who need continuity of carer, you are going to have to step up to the plate and provide that, all of you. And I'm not slating the NHS. I know the midwives and doctors who work in the NHS do their very best. They absolutely do their very best, but they're working with one hand tied behind their back. They don't get paid enough, there isn't enough funding in the system, there's not enough midwives. So they're working with one hand tied behind their back. They cannot produce the gold standard care. They cannot produce the excellent continuity of care model that a lot of these vulnerable families need at present. And my plea today is somehow to the managers of the NHS to try and get more funding, to get more midwives, to implement case loading models, because these women need it. They really need it, let alone my colleagues who can't work anymore and, you know, providing for their families who can't, you know, they can't do that anymore because the right to work has been taken away from them. So this is what the issue is. And no, it's not happy ever after. It's not all doom and gloom. As I said, some independent midwives have got it cushy. They've got contracts with their their local NHS. Some of them can afford this extortionate, insurance. I can't think what the damn thing's called. But I can't, and a lot of women can't. So, it's not good. And why should we have bloody insurance anyway? Why should we have insurance companies dictating what care we can give and what we can't give? No, it's not happening now, lots of people say. No, we can care for whoever we want. It's the thin end of the wedge. Look to Australia, look to Germany, look to Denmark, what's happening there. Insurance will get more and more expensive. You won't be able to care for high risk cases, and then independent midwifery will disappear completely. The writing is on the wall. We've sucked up to these insurance companies and say, oh yes, that's what we need, that's what families need. It's not. We need a no-fault compensation scheme funded by the government. Okay, that's enough of a rant today. That's the longest Thoughtful Thursday ever. And if you've got any comments, you can post. But yeah, it's a free country, and I'll probably not have the energy to comment back after this long talk. But yeah, that's how it is at the moment. So women have got to stand up and reclaim their births and demand better. And hospitals have got to do better. They've got to demand more from the government. And the government has to bloody do better and give more money to the NHS. That's what it all comes down to. Anyway, bye-bye for now. See you next week. Bye.